Parker Retzlaff has come under a lot of trouble after the last race in Daytona. Retzlaff usually drives only in the Xfinity series for Jordan Anderson Racing. During the last race, Parker got the opportunity to drive in the Cup Series for Beard Motorsports. But his Chevrolet team were not happy at all with what Parker did on that final lap of the race, and could be looking to penalize him in the coming days. Parker Retzlaff is currently a part of the Chevrolet driver program. So when he races in the Cup Series, Retzlaff is expected to help out other drivers in the Chevy Camaro. However, Retzlaff did the opposite in Daytona last weekend. During the overtime restart, the pack was led by Kyle Busch in the number 8 Chevy Camaro. Harrison Burton in the Ford Mustang was right next to him in second place. Behind the two drivers were Christopher Bell and Parker Retzlaff, with Retzlaff right behind Burton. As the race resumed, everyone expected Kyle to win the race, as he had his close friend and former teammate Christopher Bell behind him, who would be willing to give Kyle the push he needed to win the race. While Busch was able to get a decent start and took a decent lead for the race with Christopher Bell behind him, Bell was not able to remain behind him as Busch had changed lanes for a brief moment there. Hence, during the final lap, Harrison Burton got a good push from Parker Retzlaff behind him and took the race win. And we will always give you a good push to our NASCAR content, so we provide you with the best and latest news on the sport. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button for our channel. Given that Retzlaff helped a Ford win over the number 8 Chevy, he has come under a lot of trouble from RCR and Chevrolet. RCR and Chevy feel that Retzlaff could have helped Kyle Busch win, instead of Harrison Burton. Retzlaff's actions in Daytona will most likely have some consequences. Chevrolet will probably suspend or even fire Retzlaff from the program. After the race, Retzlaff said, "I didn't want to push a Ford to the win necessarily, but Funkaway has supported me for the last 2 years in NASCAR, and it was their first Cup race, and I wanted to do whatever in my power to give them a good result and put my name on the map. The end of the race is not how I wanted it to work, pushing a Ford, but I also didn't want to give away a result for Funkaway and how they've supported me." Peter Retzlaff has been supported by Funkaway for the better part of his professional NASCAR career. Given that this was their first Cup Series race of the season, Parker wanted to get them the best result possible. In order to do that, he believed that it was best to push Burton to win the race. Let's first look at this from Parker's perspective. Until the overtime period, Parker had performed strong. He was on track for a potential top 3 finish for the race. But when the time came to play the team game, he chose to serve his needs first. This has not sat well with Chevrolet and RCR. Peter Retzlaff, live on track, was asked about the end of the Daytona Cup race when he was lined up 4th in a Chevy and pushed Harrison in a Ford to the win, while Busch was in a Chevy on the front row. Chevy is reportedly very upset with Parker. Parker says he won't get into any consequences he suffered as a result, but says it's not what he wanted to have happen, but he wanted to put himself and his sponsors on the map and give himself a chance to win in second Cup start. As a part of the Chevrolet team, Parker Retzlaff had a responsibility to help his fellow drivers and not the rivals. But since he helped a Ford Mustang win, he is in trouble. But as this debate was going on, a NASCAR insider, Taylor Kitchen, brought up a point saying, "The chosen order: Kyle Busch, Harrison Burton, Christopher Bell, Parker Retzlaff. Bell picked the inside line behind Kyle Busch. There was truly nothing Parker Retzlaff could have done to help the number 8 at that point. That would have been safe for his competitors and fair to the position he put himself in to win the race." In a way, this is true. Parker Retzlaff was not on Kyle Busch's side during the restart. Hence, it was impossible for Parker to give Kyle the push. However, Parker did not have to necessarily push Harrison Burton to victory. He could have kept his distance. By doing so, his result would not have been anything great, but his team Chevy and RCR would have been happy. Parker clearly wasn't thinking about the long game. Like most drivers, Parker Retzlaff aims to become a NASCAR Cup Series driver. In order to do so, he needs to form connections with the right people in the sport. In order to do that, he needs to keep them happy. Costing them the Daytona race certainly did not help. Now that Parker has made a significant mistake, his future with Chevrolet is at risk. There is a high chance that the program will no longer want someone who will put their own needs over the team's. However, Parker still has this season to complete in the Xfinity series. Although he has not won a race so far, his performances have been pretty decent for someone who is just in his second year in the series. He seems to be a promising driver who needs to learn to become a team player in the coming year. But will he get the opportunity to do so? In the coming weeks, Parker will have to convince Chevrolet that he is worth keeping. He needs to show that he not only fends for himself, but for the team and his teammates as well. But even if Chevrolet decides to fire Retzlaff from the program, there is a good chance that he will be picked up by one of the other manufacturers. Given that he just helped Ford win a race, they could be looking to pick him up as well. But is this something Parker would want to do? In the last few years, Ford's performances across the NASCAR series have not been meeting expectations. Chevrolet and Toyota have consistently been the more reliable cars. Given that Chevrolet has been good to Parker, he will want to remain in the program and prove himself. He might not be very enthused by the idea of going to Ford, but he might have to, considering that Chevrolet and RCR are not very happy with him. The fact is that winning the race would not have made Parker qualify for the playoffs, as he's not a full-time Cup Series driver. Kyle Busch, on the other hand, is a full-time Cup Series driver and is still looking for a win to qualify for the playoffs. Busch was especially desperate as there were only 2 more races left. After Daytona, RCR and Busch will have only 1 more race to try and qualify for the playoffs. The only way for him to do so is by winning the race. This angered Chevrolet and RCR even more. Kyle Busch and RCR will now have to give everything they have in their arsenal to try and win the final race of the regular season in Darlington. Busch has especially had a difficult season. He left Joe Gibbs Racing and joined RCR before the start of the 2023 season. He was hoping that RCR would give him more of a priority and help him win another Cup Series title. So far, they haven't been able to do much, but in the past few races, RCR's results have been impressive. Back in Richmond, Austin Dillon won the race. However, his playoff spot was stripped as he intentionally took out Joey Logano and Denny Hamlin to take that win. However, there is no doubt that the car was impressively quick. And then in Daytona, Kyle Busch almost won the race. There's no doubt that the momentum is now with RCR, and they will do everything they can to get one of the cars into the playoffs. If this momentum continues, there's also a huge chance for Busch to win the Cup Series title as well. Coming back to Parker Retzlaff's career with Chevrolet, the team will now have a conversation with him to understand why he helped a Ford win the race against a Chevrolet. His public explanation is that he was just taking care of himself, and that Busch was on another line and he couldn't give him the push. He was eager to make a name for himself. But when it comes to NASCAR, manufacturers want their part-time drivers to help out the full-time drivers, as the results of the full-time drivers are more important in the long run. Given that Parker Retzlaff's playoff position was not on the line and Busch's was, Chevy expected him to at least not push Harrison Burton to give him the momentum to overtake the number 8 car on the final lap of the race. But Parker failed to do that, and Chevrolet is not happy at all. Do you think Parker Retzlaff did the right thing by looking out for himself? Or should he have not pushed Burton and given Busch the opportunity to win the race? Post your thoughts in the comments section below.